Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Hagee. I am the Executive Director and CEO of the Electrical Association of Philadelphia. This afternoon, I'm joined by my colleague, Mayor Malfara, as well as our presenter, Erick Mejia from EATON. I'd like to thank our sponsor today, Billows Electric Supply. They're a huge supporter of the Electrical Association of Philadelphia, and we greatly appreciate their continued support. They allow us to offer this presentation to the community at no cost. So Billows, again, thank you very much for your continued support. If you have been here before, then you know the drill. We cannot see you, we cannot hear you, which is why we're going to ask you to use that chat feature, submit your questions. We will field questions towards the end of the session today, which I expect there will be several because this is a great topic. So with that, it's my pleasure to welcome Erick Mejia. He's the Distributor Sales Representative with EATON. Erick, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for everyone's time. And during today's presentation, sponsored by Billows Electric, I'll be discussing EATON's EVCI, which is the Electrical Vehicle Charger Infrastructure, and our portfolio specific to EV chargers, and also briefly the smart breakers, but more specifically about their functionality and certain applications in which you can use these tools. I intend to go at a higher level rather than a very technical level, but if there are any questions regarding some technical questions to the EV chargers or the smart breakers, please don't hesitate. And you can reach out via email and I can provide more details and guide you with our application engineer specialist. For the first slide, you can go to the first slide. This is briefly the grid. And one thing that we're seeing, at least in the infrastructure world, is everything as a grid, and that's how we talk about it in EATON. So I decided to add this slide to just kind of briefly explain as to what we consider the grid. And if you can see briefly, you got your utility, you're getting your power distribution, which is going to get distributed, then it's going to be stepped down, and then it gets distributed into homes, businesses. And if you look at the further right side, what we call the grid is basically an infrastructure that's built based on a community that will be able to not only consume energy, but also you're going to be able to sell back that energy to the grid. Next slide. So, question, how many EV chargers are projected to be in use in 2030? So the answer is 75 million. As you can see, that's what at least some of the analysts expect to see in the market by 2030, that there's going to be around approximately 75 million EV chargers in the market. And this is across the United States. So we're seeing that, this is something that is being market driven, and the demand for EV chargers continue to grow with all these implementations of, subsidies and the government supporting the EV infrastructure in the US. But just thought to throw in that question, maybe have you guys think a little bit more as to where EV charging is going, but appreciate the poll there. If you want, you can go to the next slide. So when I meant everything as a grid, EATON sees energy transition is well underway. And what does this look for the electrical infrastructure? So we'll put simply is it's just getting power safely delivered from the grid to your home. Operations and building loads is not enough anymore. And we're seeing that in the next 15 years, half of the world's electricity will come from renewable sources, which means more distributed energy resources will be online, and more homes, businesses, and communities will be able to produce and sell energy as well as consume. And that's the point that I was making before. So, if you ask yourself, what is driving the need for everything as a grid environment? Well, electricity demand is trending up, and a centralized electricity supply is no longer the reality. And by 2050, multiple analysts are expecting there's going to be a 50% increase in the share of energy provided to buildings, which is a massive spike. Transportation of of electrification is expected to increase global electric supply demand by 27%. And data and computing will demand 4 times more electricity over the next decade. So a lot of these infrastructure challenges that we're facing currently, we're going to have to find a way of how to meet the demand and ultimately make sure that the infrastructure is reliant, but ultimately more efficient. If you want, you can change, go to the next slide. So with the energy transition and the growth of EV of the infrastructure in our economy, buildings are going to be required to have a comprehensive infrastructure solution that is, sustainable, resilient, and cost-effective. So this slide here specifically just showcases you what that sentence means. You have in this picture, we can see what a building will look like hypothetically having this infrastructure. Having the power being delivered from the utility grid, being stepped down to a transformer, down to the power distribution, which could be your standalone switchboards or switchgear to manage the distribution of power, to your EV charger, your solar panels, inverters, and ultimately the storage of power in a battery storage, which are pretty massive. If you like, you can go to the next slide. So here we have basically how we're going to market. We have here basically, as you can see the pictures, we have the fleet as a support, the fleet as a business, charging station, the small deployment, the site level deployment, parking as a business, and street parking. So the infrastructure for EV is encompassed by all these offerings, but ultimately EATON as a whole, we have offerings that will be able to meet the demand for all these types of applications. So, chargers for the fleet, fleet as a business, which would require probably fast charging and DC charging. The charging stations will require, your standalone pedestal or your wall-mounted EV chargers. Then you got the small deployments that could be DC or could be your standard level 2 chargers. You got your site level deployment as well, which could be an office building that has multiple charging stations, and that can be a site level deployment. And also parking as a business, where you can have a parking lot where you have multiple standalone EV charging locations and you have multiple EV chargers and pedestals. And as an end user, you will have the capabilities of charging the customer based on the wattage. And we as an EV charger that we do have an open platform, which not many of our competitors do have an open platform when it comes to software and hardware, but and ultimately for street parking as well. So these are just a couple examples that showcases how EV chargers can be implemented and where they're going to be used. And if you want, you can go to the next slide. So here, this slide is specific to our product offerings and our portfolio. So if you look at the AC, if we start from the left and then we move to the right, for the AC charger range, this can be used for a residential home, to a multi-tenant, to an office. We have the EATON Green Motion EV Smart Breaker and Charger, our Green Motion Building Series, and EATON Green Motion Fleet Services. So these blue dots, just to make it more simplified, basically just gives you an understanding of what this charger can be used for. So for the EV Smart Breaker charger or the fleet, you can use it for the residential multi-tenant. And if you look at the EATON Green Motion Fleet Series, this one's going to be a 19.2 kW at 240 volts. So this one can actually be used in multi-tenant residential workplace, community, fleet, and highways. You also have our EATON DC offering, where it's 150 kilowatt offering, and this one can be used for your workplace, community, and your fleet and highway. So this is going to be your fast charging option that we have. If we look at the column where we have these panel boards, that's where we have, our bolt-on breakers, where they're EV smart breaker chargers. So we also have that offering for your switchboards and panel boards. If we look at the energy storage, this is what I was briefly talking about in the picture of the building where it's all synchronous. This is going to be your battery storage. And then the digital solutions, these are basically the apps that will be linked to the EV charger. And then the software or the network manager, basically, this would enable the user to have the capabilities to manage a whole network of EV chargers depending where it's being applied. So not only do we offer the capabilities of the infrastructure of the EV charger, the smart breaker EV charger, or the bolt-on breaker, for example, but we also offer the software and the hardware alongside these offerings. You can go to the next slide. So question number 2, is the EATON charging connector J1227 universal? Please take your time.
Okay, we're getting some good responses. A couple more seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Yeah, 56% yes. The correct answer is yes. So I have gotten multiple questions in the past about our connectors just because of Tesla. So Tesla right now is basically the leading car manufacturer that offers EV cars where their connector is Tesla specific. So with the EATON charging connector, it is universal, but with the Tesla, all you will need is an adapter. So we're expecting in the next couple of years that Tesla might be switching their charging connector adapter, but our EATON charging connector is compatible with every EV vehicle that's in the market currently right now. And you can go to the next slide. So here what we have is our Green Motion EV Smart Breaker chargers. So in the bottom, what you're going to see is the applications in which you can use either the EV charger breaker, you can either use the EV charger, and you can have a pedestal. So I'll briefly go through the pictures and I'll explain a little bit of the breaker and the charging connector. So if you look at the first picture, this right here is basically the EV charger breaker, which is a 2-pole 40 amp breaker, but the max amperage that will be able to give is 32 amps. And it's a 240 and it's 7.7 kilowatts. And that breaker is also in our enclosure of the EV charger. So for the first example, you can install this in a BR load center. It will take up 4 pole spaces. So instead of having 2 poles, because it's a 2-pole 40, because it's an integrated EV smart breaker, you're going to have 4 poles be taken away from that BR load center. And we provide a 25-foot cord that can go all the way to your vehicle. So this is a prime example where if you have a panel inside of your garage, you can just get the breaker, install it in the panel, you wire the charging cable, and you're pretty much done. The second option, which is the second picture that you see in the bottom, is basically an extension where it goes to a little small outlet, which this could be, if you have a garage and you have you want to have your charging station outside, but you have the load center in your garage, you can actually just install it in the panel, like I mentioned before, and you can actually take that out and install it. The third option is actually the wall mounted. So this one is actually hardwired, and the alternate solution is to actually just buy the plug-in, which that is also an option. So you can either buy the hardwired EV charger, or you can buy the wall-mounted one. It's up to what the user would like and what's easier for them. And then ultimately, the last picture that you see there is, being used in a more commercial setting where it's, installed in a pedestal. So these are the offerings that we have for the EV charger breaker. So it could be the EV charger itself, or it can just be the EV Smart Breaker charger that you can install on your BR panel. And there's multiple ways that you can order these. Don't hesitate to reach out to Bill's Electric. They can help you out with all these offerings. And if you have, more questions, more detailed questions as to installation or safety or anything like that, just please send out an email to us and we can get you that response as quick as possible. You can go to the next slide here. Here we have the panel board offering, which I was mentioning before. So for this one, you can have integrated panel boards, and it's much more cleaner and it's cost-effective installation. So it is expandable to 6 chargers for panel board and for Powerline 3s, and it's up to 20 chargers in IFS, which is an integrated facility system. And for those that don't know IFS, don't worry. At first, I was like, what is this? But IFS is basically an integrated solution where we provide a high-powered voltage panel board, a transformer, and some breakers all installed in like a switchboard, basically. And you can also install these EV bolt-on breakers there. It's better protection against vandalism. I think these are very good for applications where you might have a high-rise building and you might have to install EV chargers in your parking lot. And the way you can do that is by having these breakers installed in these panel boards, and you can use that extension and connect it or hardwire it to these connection box that you can see in the picture in the bottom right there. So additional to that, you will have Ethernet capabilities. That way you're able to communicate within the charger itself and the panel board. That way, if your parking's underground, there might be some issues with connectivity, but that's a solution that we also offer. So that's a pretty slick design. And like it says in the bottom, the option is of 19.2 kilowatt offering. It says we currently have it in the market, and then the optional 4G connectivity with it, the external hotspot, something that I was mentioning before with the Ethernet and the Wi-Fi. So that is our panel board offering for the EV charger, and you can go to the next slide. So here we have the Green Motion Building Pro. So this one, you can either get it in the Green Motion Building, or you can do the Green Motion Building Pro. And as you can see, the display is basically for the user interface. You have the LCD display and the status LEDs for the Green Motion Building. And then for the Green Motion Building Pro, you have the touchscreen, the LCD display, and the status LEDs. And then the common features between both this Green Motion Building and the Green Motion Building Pro is that the enclosure itself is plastic and is outdoor rated. The cord set, of course, is going to be that J1772 with 25 feet of extension. The connection is going to be Wi-Fi and Ethernet. And of course, you can use a QR code. And the QR code, what the purpose of that is, we've gotten questions, well, how can our solutions take payments? Do you have to scan the credit card? Do you have to tap it like you do in your grocery store or in the gas station? And what we've decided to do is that we've offered a QR code specific to the unit that's installed. And because we have an open platform, depending on what software you're using, you can actually manage it, and you can actually use the QR code to process a payment. So The the caveat there is that the user will have to have an application to use it, but instead of you tapping your credit card, your data may be stolen, or there may be some safety hazards there when it comes to credit card process payments. So QR code enables that safety part. So I think that's a pretty interesting feature compared to some of the competitors that we have. And if you want, you can go to the next slide. Here we have the Fleet Pro. So this one, the max output is 80 amps, 19.2 kW at 248 volt. It is wall mounted and it can be pedestal mounted. And you do have the Green Motion Fleet versus the Green Motion Fleet Pro. So the enclosures itself, if you look at the Fleet, it is plastic, and if you compare it to a Green Motion Fleet Pro, it's galvanized steel, and it's outdoor rated. So the user interface is somewhat similar. If you see the LCD display and the status LCD LEDs for the Green Motion versus the Green Motion Fleet Pro, which is a touchscreen LCD display, and then the status LEDs. And of course, it does come with that universal J1772 with the 25-foot cord set. So, of course, this could be used for your fleet. This could be used in an application where you can have these installed in an office setting where you have multiple parking lots available, and you can have these installed, and you can use these for your EV vehicles. Next slide, please. Now, this right here is something that is very interesting, which is our innovative solution that Eaton is spearheading the way in the industry. So this, the Eaton's EV busway, which provides a much more cleaner installation, more cost effective. It can expand as you need and have busway fittings and taps. This solution includes 25-foot cord set with the J1772. And it has an 80 amp EV bus plug and a busway system and cable management system. So this right here is probably one of the differentiators that we have currently in the market when it comes to EV charging, because this involves also busway. So this a prime example of this is actually if you have a FedEx or a UPS or one of these huge fleet vehicle companies that have a lot of fleet vehicles, and you're trying to simultaneously charge multiple vehicles at the same time. If you're able to provide a busway solution with the EV chargers, you can have the flexibility to have these installed on the busway, and you have the flexibility to move the chargers where you need to, depending where the vehicle's parked. So I think this right here is one of the key differentiators that we have in the market. And we're currently spearheading this in the market with this pretty neat solution. So I think it's quite slick. I think this can provide multiple charging solutions at a single point, and offers the end user, the capability to be able to charge multiple cars at the same time and have your cars ready to charge and go and deliver those packages. Next slide. So here, there are two slides here that I don't want to cause any confusion here, but this slide right here is specific to the smart breakers. I think later in the presentation, there's an additional slide to the smart breaker, but here we're going to do the introduction of the smart breakers. And just to have the differentiation between the EV charger and the smart breaker. So the smart breaker in itself is used in your panel boards, in your standard VR panel, and it is UL 489 thermomagnetic. It's short circuit. It's overload protection. For the remote control, as you can see, it has the on and off control relay, which is independent from the trip mechanism. So the smart breaker itself gives the capability for the end user to manage certain loads from their application, from an application that we provide the end user, which they can download, and they can actually manage the metering, they can manage peak hours of demand, they can manage when the breaker should be on or when it should be off. So this is a smart breaker that is a different offering that we have compared to the EV charger. Because the EV charger does use an EV charger breaker, it's similar in design. However, this is more specific to your standard BR panel and panel boards that, that doesn't require an EV charger. This is more about giving the flexibility to the user to use at their home, or if you have a big project and you want to be able to look at specific circuits, you can manage it with these. And of course, at the right or on the left side of the screen, what you can see is the catalog numbers that we offer. And these are, if it starts with a BRE, that's going to be your standard BR panel breaker. And if you look at the bottom, your BABs, those are going to be your bolt-on breakers. I didn't include a question here, but at the moment, there isn't a CH offering for these smart breakers or for the EV charger breakers. So that's something that our product line is currently working on. I don't have the specifics as to when we should have it ready, but just thought to note that we should be having an offering for the CH panel for these smart breakers and the EV charger breakers soon. Next slide. And here we have our DC charger. And this is going to be your fast charger. So it's going to be up to 150 kW. And this one is designed specifically for max output and high speed charger. So this will be for your highway chargers. These will be the ones that are compatible to the Teslas of the world that you see on your Wawas. It's up to 350 amp cables. It does have a very small footprint compared to other solutions that we're seeing in the market. And of course, you do have Ethernet and 4G cellular capabilities with this DC offering that we have coming in the market. So I think when it comes to specific, the specific timeline as to when we're going to have this offering, I think what we've heard from the product line is that we should see something by Q3 or Q2 of next year. So it's just a matter of capacity issues and just making sure that we can get these out on the market as fast as we can. Next slide, please. And here, briefly, I just want to go over the charging network management systems that we have and we offer that goes in tandem with these EV chargers and the smart breakers. We have the all-in-one software management. You have the full control for continuous maintenance, and you have advanced statistical data capability. So, our software, we're going to be able to enable the user to use the data, to know when to use a charger, when it's being used the most, at what moment should you not be using the charger, and you can manage, if you want to turn off the breaker, you can have this software that enables you to make those decisions. And also with the metering capabilities, I know a lot of people have given us feedback that they're interested in just learning about the metering capabilities that these breakers have. So this is just a brief synopsis of the network manager system that we have for our solutions here. Next slide. So I did touch on the smart breakers. You can go to the next slide. If we want, we can go to the last slide, because the next slide here is going to depict the smart breakers that we spoke about. So if we go to the next slide, the slide that we briefly touched upon not too long ago, it got repeated here, but I wanted to touch on the software capabilities. So if you want, you can go to the next slide, Sarah. Appreciate the help here. So for the smart breaker, we actually do have in a specific app where you can download. And this app is pretty slick. You download the app, you have the breaker, and you can actually set schedules with this breaker. You can remotely turn it off and turn it back on. You can display the energy usage of that specific breaker. You can set notifications, and it gives you a weekly insight as to what your usage of the power is for that specific breaker. So a quick example is could be that you put, you left on a trip and you have your pool pump running and you have a breaker that's connected and it's the smart breaker and you're a couple miles away, but you have this app and you have the smart breaker. You can actually go ahead and tell the breaker to turn off, because if not, you're gonna have that pump running. Meanwhile, you're out on the road or you left your home. So it's very specific to the uses that you can have, but it also gives you a lot of data and insight as to the power usage that you have. And at the end of the day, you can save a couple bucks at the end of the year by being able to be proactive and manage the power usage that you have. With that being said, I know there's a couple timelines there, but this app is fully functional. If you do purchase a smart breaker, you can download this app and it's fully functional. I think this is just a timeline as to when they're going to come out, but we should have, please don't hesitate in reaching out to Bill's Electric, asking them questions about the smart breakers if they have them available. That way you can have these on hand. You can try them at your house. The application is a pretty cool app that you can use on your phone. It's pretty user friendly. It's not that confusing. It's really easy as riding as a bike. And ultimately, we're heading into a market where there's a lot of demand for these smart breakers, smart panels, and EV smart breaker chargers. So hopefully this conversation gave you a little insight, a higher view as to where we're at with our EV infrastructure, where we're trying to head, and give you some insight as to some of the product offerings that we have, maybe the BR smart breaker or the bolt-on breaker smart breaker, or the solution that we have for the EV chargers, which we've been seeing an increased demand of these in the past couple months. So if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate on reaching out. I can work in tandem with one of our applications engineers specific for EV. That way we can provide you the best answer and give you more insight to technical responses that you may be looking. And of course, please don't hesitate on reaching out to Bill's Electric as well. And they can also provide some support when it comes to EV chargers and smart breakers. And that's the last slide there.
Hey, Eric, do you want me to play the video?
Yes, please go ahead. Guys, gals, we have a very neat video of our smart breakers. So hopefully you enjoy.
Marquita made her house more energy efficient by replacing the circuit breakers in her electrical panel with smart breakers from EATON that enable her to control her energy loads.
Today, the world we live in is changing. More people are driving electric vehicles, the addition of renewables like solar and wind, as well as energy storage systems. So homes are now not only consumers of energy, but also producers of energy. EATON Smart Breakers enable home energy management. So now homeowners have the ability to not only monitor and understand their energy usage, but they can also control energy intensive loads in their home. This is an example of our home as the grid strategy at work. EATON's mobile app provides the user actionable energy insights to help optimize their energy usage, reduce their electric bill, and advance their sustainability.
Thank you, Sarah. Currently look at the questions here. I think John was asking about system engineering. Yes, we do offer that. I think for busway and any of these offerings that we do have, another offering that we recommend when it comes to our EV infrastructure is to have our engineering services team. That way they can provide power system studies and they can give the contractor, the EC, the best solution that they can have, ultimately having it very safe. But the other question here is, let's see. So right now the smart breakers, the EV charger breaker is GFCI. The smart breakers themselves are not an arc fault combo. So it's just like your standard thermomagnetic breaker. Uh, they're not
Great.
compatible. They're not compatible with other panels, so they're only compatible with the EATON VR. So at the moment, we don't have a CH offering for smart breakers or the EV charger breaker solution. That should be coming out in the next year or so, from what the product line has told us. And when it comes to the universal, if they want to use it for another panel, I think we're not there yet. I think we're in the process of manufacturing a classified breaker, but I'm not sure where we stand in terms of timeline with that.
Make sure to read the questions, Eric, because not everyone can see them.
Okay, sure. So, do you recommend surge protection when installing these items? So, when it comes to surge, we're with the new code that's going to be implemented in the next couple of years, depending where you are specifically. We're hearing that surge should be installed in some fashion, either in the panel. So with that, you can have a BRP surge or a CHN surge if that's a VR, or you can use the higher rated ones, which could be the CH SPT2 Ultra. So I would recommend having a surge breaker installed in the panel itself, or a surge unit, for example, just because the code is starting to implement some of these NEC requirements. Let's see. Joanne, average service life on smart breakers. I would have to get back to you on that. I think we do have data available on that as to the service life. I just don't know the specifics right now, but I can definitely reach out back to Joanne on that. John White, last question here. I see. Will Eaton be attending IAEI Eastern Session meeting this year? I want to say that that's also sponsored by, I'm not sure if it's sponsored by one of our distributors here in the city, but I'd like for John to reach out to me on that specific question, because I think I have something in my calendar where I have actually someone that works for EATON when it comes with codes and compliances, and he's going to be giving a discussion about the NEC code and what we're seeing in certain districts and how it's going to be applied in Philly. But
we'll certainly connect you two afterwards.
Sure.
To address that question. And as a reminder, everyone, we're going to be sending out Erick's information so you can connect with him directly once we send out the recording of this presentation.
I think
so. With that, Erick, are there anything else you want to cover?
You know, I'm going back to the earlier questions, so I think we have enough time here just so I can cover these earlier questions. Let's see. What makes EATON charging systems unique from most others? I think the most unique part about the EATON offering is the open software system. Not many solutions out there give the flexibility being an open system, just because that's how they market themselves. And in this case, you know, the biggest player in the market with the EV charging car is probably one of them, but we give the user the flexibility to use an open system. That way they can manage your system and use whatever source they want. Also, I think the busway EV charger solution is pretty slick. I don't think another competitors of ours is doing that right now in the moment. And that's a very specific use of our EV chargers. Of course, that's when you have a big facility and you want to charge multiple vehicles at the same time. Then I have another one here. John also asked, does EATON make this a classified version? So no, not now. I don't know if we're going to have one in the future or if we're currently working on. That's something that I can follow up with my product line for sure. Pete asked, EV charging panel or dedicated panel? Minimum, maximum load with these panels. I'll reach out to Pete to answer this question specifically, but for the EV charging panel, so we do have an offering for the EV charger breaker in a panel, and that would be for your standard VR panel. And we do offer the bolt-on breaker that would be for a panel board. I would just have to answer this question that he's asking, which is the minimum and maximum load on or with these panels. And I think I answered all the questions, hopefully.
Eric,
so
we'll
that's
make sure,
important.
yeah, we'll make sure you get a copy of the list
Sure.
of questions. So that way you can do the follow-up individually, because I know there were some more technical questions here you'd like to follow up on. So everyone, thank you so much, Eric. Excellent presentation. Really, really cool technologies bringing to market. And we really appreciate you sharing it with us today.
Yeah,
So,
of course. Thank you for your time.
thank you. Again, thank you to Billows, EATON. We're signing off from the Electrical Association of Philadelphia. Have a great day, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.